What kind of literature do you like to study?
Anything that appeals to me, British literature, American literature in specific.
Who is the favorite writer of yours in American literature?
Arthur Miller,
What kind of films do you like to watch?
Noir,
What about Bob?
Bob. I like Bob. Most of the films that De Niro did, I like, almost all of them.
Which country do you want to visit in future?
Scandinavian countries.
Any specific reason? Can you state one reason?
I want to see and believe that all the surveys that are done are fake, and I want to go and see them firsthand.
Why not Russia?
Russia too. I like Russia. I like Russian people. They exude an aura of sobriety.
Do you think Putin is a democratic leader?
Putin is a leader who has been elected by his people, and as a democracy, if I do not wish to entertain anything about my sovereign leader elected by my system, then I do not think I ought to comment upon their system unless and until I have had the experience of talking to them. That appropriate. Because the global mouthpiece of democracy, America, has its track record right laid out right in front of everybody. So if somebody like America can be so deceptive, in fact, is the worst perpetrator of human rights, then I don't think there is anything to say or to do without going to that country and talking to the people and witnessing their conditions firsthand.
Can you explain Marxism briefly?
To each according to his ability, to each according to his need.
Why do you think it is a flawed theory?
It's not a flawed theory. It requires many factors and it requires a very active state to propagate this theory, and most importantly, it requires certain conditions that are must in order to in order for Marxism to take roots in a country. And in a country like India, where the population base is so very large and is always increasing with such a diversity on each and every aspect, I do not think this society will ever become a testing ground for Marxism.
Why do you think 5-year plans should be discontinued in every country?
See, 5-year plans had their time. 5-year plan requires a state controlled and a state regulated economy, and that kind of regulation in today's world of always today's world of ever changing geopolitics, of ever turning tables, a very subtle kind of bureaucracy where people do not wish to come out fighting and aggressive right at your face. You do not wish to take up a system where everything is out and rightly laid out in front of you for a period of 5 years. 5 years is a very big time. So
Do you know?
it's good that this system remains on a yearly basis, because see, most of the times what happens is in case you have anything of contingent nature going against the plan, then the whole plan collapses, because a 5-year plan calculates everything precisely, and it's a calculation based on cause and effect. So if one thing happens that has not been calculated or that has not been taken into account, then I think the system fails, and it has failed quite a lot of times. In India also, the second 5-year plan was uh, not a grand success as people would like to think, so precisely because of the same reason.
I want to ask a question about evolution.
What it is.
Not yesterday, few days back, when you were watching the proceedings of Supreme Court, a Supreme Court judge said that India is not a place where revolution has been given much importance, but India is rather a evolved society. So
Yes.
what do you see in this? Do you think something needs to be understood
Yes,
when he said that?
a lot has to be understood. See, because of diversity of opinions and because of a democratic space for everything, we do not wish to break the chain of command, or we do not wish to take any radical step in such a way that we discard anything. Rather, it becomes a democratic process of accepting, a democratic process of dialogue where everything is discussed. People give space to opinions that are not according to their cutout desires. They, in case if they do not advocate it, they do not outrightly reject it. There is there is this idea of dialogue and democratic space in this country. Therefore, what happens is we do not we do not become something on one fine morning. Rather, we take everything into account and we evolve on the idea of let's say creating a dialogue, creating an idea, seeing through it. People give chance, people give space to people, even though they might find it outrightly undemocratic. That's why we believe in evolution. We do not believe in revolutions. Though we cannot say that revolutions haven't taken place, because to accept the idea of evolution, you need a very revolutionary and progressive mindset. Because a decision taken one fine morning, or a government dethroned, or a coup happening one fine day has never been an answer to anything anywhere in the world. Rather, the solution has always been on the side of evolution. So in a way, Indian people are far more revolutionary, because we have that safety valve option of, if something goes wrong, we have a plan B, or there is a space of maneuvering ourselves to an amicable situation in case things do not pan out the way we have planned it.
So how do you see uh, Max Muller and V.A. Smith? You might have read about him.
Yes.
So how
Well,
do you see them?
Max Muller's contribution to India is, or an Indian should be thankful to Max Muller, because
Was he an Orientalist or Anglist?
see, he was an Orientalist in the sense that he had a very keen sense of attraction towards the Indian scriptures or the Eastern way of thinking, and the earlier translations or the earlier works that came out of this ancient land, this ancient civilization, uh, owe their academic translation or owe their academic rigor to people like Max Muller, but but at the same time, the quality of translation or the relevant sense being transferred, or the meaning being conveyed truly in the sense we wanted it to be, or the way it was destined, or the way it was supposed to be, has always been a question.
Do you think he has distorted Indian history
No, no. See,
or presented a wrong
no,
aspects?
that would be a preposterous question, because when nobody was doing this kind of work, he was the one to do it, and to, let's say, to take up such a task where you're alien to the culture, you don't know the language, yet you try your best. So today,
But the same thing has been done by William Jones.
with the sense of with the
He
sense
established Ascetic Society of Bengal.
he
But
established.
why is he not given that much
See,
importance?
he's
He also did a lot of
he
translations
did a
in
lot of
Sanskrit.
translation. See, the problem with today's scholarship is that somewhere around the era of 1960s and 70s, when we were realizing that this state controlled quota raj was not the real answer to our problems, but we had somewhere in 1940s and 50s taken the decision to not submit to the colonial mindset, this created a sort of fracture where we could not accept the whole spectrum per se. People like William Jones had a background, they did a tremendous job, and to diss an individual or to put an individual beyond his time and beyond his era is not, according to me, the right thing to do, because William Jones did what he did, and to, let's say, compare both of them in a on a different scale of perception is wrong. Though with William Jones, he had the luxury of the British Raj,
He was funded.
but but nonetheless, an act of translation or an act of bringing into light any document which is not your natural calling or which is not part of your natural culture is in itself a big academic task.
So, can I conclude that William Jones was dedicated to bring out
Both of
the
them
real
were-
picture of Indian history,
नहीं,
which
this, without studying them in their utmost detail, I cannot say that who was more keen on bringing out the correct picture. I think this might have been one of the reasons or
So
one
I
of the
could be wrong
motivations,
also.
but to make a qualitative judgment, or let's say to reach a qualitative ground on the basis of an assessment that too comparative in nature, can only be done when you have read at least both of them considerably. And with me, the problem is that I haven't read William Jones at all. I have had the pleasure of or the chance of fumbling upon, so to speak, on the works of Mr. Max Muller, but I wouldn't call them a reading of
do you think his allegiance
nature.
was doubted?
Anybody analyzed today.
He was
will
a British
always-
man and working for
नहीं,
East India Company.
Fine. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was also working for the East India Company.
But
Can
he
you doubt
wanted
it?
the development of Indian society.
See, to understand the deepest motivations of somebody is always a question of intent. ठीक है? So to make a shortcut judgment, or to say that I can club him in a certain group on the basis of my own positions, that too which have been divorced from reality or are separated from reality
That's
200
why.
years apart. Let's say 200 years
That's why
apart.
Raja Ram Mohan Roy compared sati to murder of a person. That how can you let such practice prevail in the society, where a woman is being burnt alive on the pyre of her husband.
Yes.
So don't you think taking help of British government was the right act?
Indeed, it is. In the same way, let's put it to today's parameters.
I will ask
Just to
I
say
will
that
ask one more question.
Because just to say that we have a new parliament today, we cannot say that the old parliament was. We cannot say that the
Obsolete.
old parliament became obsolete, or just because we have a parliament or a roof under our head, which allows us the luxury of or the service of creating laws for our country, we cannot just turn out and say that this parliament was a symbol of colonialism. Though it is a fair argument, because it was commissioned by British for their purposes, but it has been appropriated post independence for our own purposes. So the moment India got freedom and we started talking about our sovereignty, every law passed under that roof makes that an Indian place. Besides, it was made by Indian labor, exclusively out of Indian money, back then too, heavily contracted upon by Indian contractors, especially father of Sardar Khushwant Singh ji, who was one of the chief contractors of
that building. So that tag of coloniality will never go away, because that's the reality. But for me, we did away with the tag of coloniality coloniality the moment we stepped in to our freedom. Huh, the remnants of which have been still being carried, but that is a gradual process and we will evolve. Because we had one party in power, there was a certain stagnancy about the finer aspects of it being weeded out slowly. But since 2014, there is another discourse at place also at work. We will find that this process of weeding out this colonial hangover will take place fastly henceforth.
So you are justifying Mr. Modi. What he said that we will remove every sign of colonialism in.
See, let me put it in the correct perspective. English is a colonial language. If England ruled upon us, then every man speaking English, every law.
No, I am a British man, but the problem with me is that I can't be a British man biologically. I am an underdog because I wanted to take birth in England. That's my problem. I know you can't do anything. So let me ask one.
But you cannot choose to become,
Yeah, that's not.
become a naturalized citizen or a born citizen of a, let's say, particular country only because you had a latent desire based on the knowledge that you collected when you were born in a country.
An Englishman is respected more than a person who speaks Hindi in India.
No. This is where this idea of colonial.
Even constitutional bodies like UPSC is doing such things. Why are you refuting me? Just see the results. People who have been writing answers in English, they have been chosen in large number. This is a reality. I am just stating a fact.
See, this is something that will evolve over time. We'll find a renaissance of, let's say, the Indic revitalization. These things will come into picture, but it will take time, and this is not going to happen in a period of, let's say, 5 years. This will take time. This will take people who will have a certain devotion, who will believe that to teach English is merely teaching them a language. It's not more than that. To become functional, to become global, it's a
But
utility.
this is listen.
Utility,
This is
not
a
more than
reality.
that.
This is a reality that to get into a good IM,
See,
you
then
need
I
to
am
be
talking
very
about
fluent
breaking
in.
the status quo.
But there is
Realities change with changing perceptions and with a change in system. What I am talking about is breaking the status quo. I am talking about 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line. I am not talking about today. Today the reality is you need English to get
in the
into
era
good
of
IIMs.
globalization. How can you say that?
In the era of globalization, the French have been arrogant and the French have been studious enough not to speak English or any other language to other people. The Germans have been doing this so.
But they
The
do not
Koreans have
have
done
any
this so.
big MNCs. That's a fact too.
Fine, but aren't they fine countries with a good amount of GDP under their belt, a decent polity and democracy?
A boy has been hit. He is hit.
This happens.
He is
बहुत जोर से
confused.
नहीं लगी ना?
Let me capture him. So let's continue. He is not going to respond. See,
He's a typical Delhi kid.
yes. earlier I have discussed.
Lack of civility
Yes, and no mannerism.
and no mannerism, no manners. But let it be. What's a manner?
See, he cannot serve the shuttle. Now I will ask a very hypothetical question.
And
I
hope
want
this is the last question.
no this there could be many more questions because you are an insight in yourself. So I will continue. The question is, if I want you to compare Fatwa hai Alamgiri to Hindu Marriage Act, could it be done or not? Tell me.
No,
Why can't it be compared?
because both of them are, let's say, a work of similar nature. Because if my memory serves me correct, Fatwa-e-Alamgiri was based on a
On
congregation of, I guess, the biggest collection of Muslim scholars assembled under one roof.
yes,
But
Aurangzeb
हाँ,
invited all of them from most of them from Persia.
हाँ, but the point is, nonetheless, it is a work based on the traditional sources of knowledge, and the traditional sources of knowledge in Muslim theology do not make a distinction between the Muslim state and the Muslim religion. For them, for a Muslim mind, so to speak, it is completely illogical, or it's completely non-decipherable to create points of distinction between the modern polity, the modern state, and a theological state based on the principles of Sharia. And Fatwa-e-Alamgiri, though being a very scholarly source of Muslim law, but nonetheless, it feeds into the Sharia canon of the Muslims. And with the rigidity of the Muslim class, if there is any chance, because I cannot deny that there is a great amount of respect within me for people who are progressive in the Muslims too, like one of our teachers, Mr. Javed Haq, Kamaluddin Khan sir. But to talk about it, let's say on a populist scale or on a mass level, will be presumptuous, because the common people do not create that distinction. And reading the Quran in that light has been happening ever since, and people are not made aware of these distinctions. So when you talk about, let's say, a Muslim discussing his opinion about the modern state, he'll naturally lean towards, let's say, a Sharia state, or a state based on the principles of based on the practices of Quran. The best that they could do with is Hadith, and they are unapologetic about it. For them, even the Muslim law holds no place, because it's a state-sponsored law.
So you are saying it is more political than religious.
It's more a question of understanding, because a Muslim is,
So that
because a
means
Muslim
it is
mind
not
is designed in such a way.
it is not democratic. In single
हाँ,
in single line it could be described
it's not
as it is
it's
not
democratic. I'll tell you why. Because it submits to the presumptions of Sharia, and in a world governed by Sharia, in a world where Fatwa-e-Alamgiri speaks about its identity, I think there is no place for somebody from a different religion, because for them the basic distinction mentioned in Quran is a distinction between somebody who abides by the principle of Allah, and
you carry on
and somebody who does not. And
Does
there
he
is
have
and
any
there is a very
place?
generic word for it. Everybody who does not becomes a kafir. So
an infidel,
we naturally turn out to be somebody who are
non-believers.
non-believers. Now the question is, who are they to call us non-believers? Our belief systems are merely different, but because they are of the opinion that only our belief system is the true belief system, therefore other belief systems do not exist or are non-meritorious or cannot be worthy of being called a belief system.
So so people like us have no place in their world.
No place in their world.
So
Exactly.
we do not exist.
In case if we exist,
We are second-grade citizens for them.
we'll be slowly forced to take positions that will be according to their worldview. And this has been happening throughout the whole.
So this could
Muslim
never
world.
be a democratic
No.
process.
No.
This
Show
will
me any-
always be theocratic.
A Muslim state is a theocratic state. In fact, all the Abrahamic states are theocratic states.
Then what about Hindu Marriage Act? Do you think
The fact that
it is democratic?
it is
The act in itself, is
the
it
act
democratic?
in itself is democratic because the Hindu society believes in.
Why can't we have uniform civil code under Article 44 enshrined in the Constitution?
We can have
Then why hasn't the government enacted it
the government
when
has
there is a
not-
provision mentioned in the
Arey,
Constitution?
there are many provisions and there are many things that can be done. Hope this could have become an utopia or a
But-
utopia.
But
it isn't.
but in Goa it has been enacted already.
Fine, it has been enacted, but Goa has a different history of.
Goa is more like a Christian state because most people are Christians.
हाँ तो there is a very basic distinction between a Christian and a Muslim. A Christian religion theologian
They also
is
have
a
10
corporate,
commandments.
is a corporate. ठीक है, but a Muslim one does not, at least for my eyes, he does not look like a man who I can, let's say, discuss my faith openly with. Besides, there is a certain rigidity.
So what
And
is
that
the
rigidity
solution?
is far more visible when they all themselves sit and discuss, because they themselves have a hierarchy where they say that the Jews are the most loved. Then there are, I guess, the Christians, and the least loved are the Muslims. This is what somebody told me. One of my friends told me, but I cannot back it up. So the questions of uniform civil code become pertinent only when the Muslim is ready to live in a state where, at least in the matters of statehood, in the matters of state affairs, he is ready to put aside, not give away or give up his religious identity, but to put it aside, let's say, for a specific purpose. Now the question is, can a Muslim do that? Can somebody ask them? We've all seen what happens when somebody asks them to do so or to think upon those lines. Now the other half is, can the state do it? Well, surely the state can do it. But state has its own compulsions. The government, which forms the most important part of the state, has to win elections. So they have their own compulsions. So on it goes.
So who is your favorite badminton player?
My favorite.
Who do you admire most?
Tawfiq Hidayat, Lindan.
Oh,
Then this Swedish player, the tall and lanky one, नाम भूल मैं उसका. Henderson something. He's the youngest of all.
do you want to go to Narendra Modi Stadium?
Yes, I would like to.
Where is it located? Do you know?
Gujranwala, Pakistan.
No, your answer is wrong, sir. It is in Ahmedabad,
Ahmedabad.
where a man had called Sachin Tendulkar Suchin Tendulkar.
And the man, in response, called him Dolan Trump. Tongue in cheek.
They both
They both
complimented each other.
complimented each other. Yes.